Today we're going to talk about how to use Boto3 with AWS, Boto3. What we're talking about, well, you can find me at Soldavid Cloud in Twitter. The repository, everything we're going to see, everything we're going to do, you're going to find it at this repository, GitLab, Soldavid, Whizlabs. We're going to put it in the chat later, so don't worry. I'm part of the AWS Community Builders Group, and as Neha says, I'm part of the Mexico City user group. I would invite you to join the user groups you have over there. And to start, I'm going to make my screen a little bit bigger. Give me a second. I forgot to make my screen bigger. Yes, I think that's better. So we're going to remind ourselves, what is cloud computing? Cloud computing is to use information technology resources, compute power, storage, network from public providers. And when we say public providers, we're not saying everyone can see our data. What we mean is everyone can use these resources. We don't need to be a big company. We don't need to have millions of dollars to have access to this technology. And that is great because it means even a student, even us as persons can use the same infrastructure and have the same computing power, the same availability to these magnificent technologies as any company in the world. So when you use public cloud computing, you have access to the best technology there is, even if you do it personal, as a person or as a small business or as a student. That's something that didn't happen before. And this is very important because we're going to have a quiz at the end. You're going to have an exam, and this one of the questions can be this one. What does it mean, public cloud? Because sometimes when we enter I'm going to sell you something part of the business, everybody says they are public cloud, and that's not always the truth. So to be public cloud, to really be public cloud, what we need is to be remote. You don't care where the resources are. Yes, you care the resources are in Mexico, the resources are in Europe, the resources are in India, the resources are in Japan. But you don't care in which street they are. You don't care in which rack they are. Mostly. Sometimes you do care, but in general, it's no longer important. They are virtual. When you ask for resources, these resources are not physical boxes. They are not physical routers. They are not physical computers. They are not physical hard disk. What you are requesting, what you are buying, it's virtual resources, virtual computers, virtual routers, virtual disks. And that is very important because it gives you a lot of flexibility. Mostly, there are cases where you request physical resources. It can be done, but in general, everything is virtual. Self-service, we don't need to call AWS and talk to them and ask them, hey, please give me 10 virtual machines. We can do it by ourselves. We can connect to the console. We can give a command in the computer and we get the resources we want. And that is very important because it lets you be scalable. It's easy to request a lot of resources very quickly and get them very quickly. If we still relied on human agents, that would be much harder. automate it. We don't need to do it by hand. We can do it. We can manually request the resources, but we don't need to. We can create a program that requests resources or that operate these resources. And that is really important. And that is something you should do if you want to do this professionally. If you want to do cloud right, you need to do it automatically. Elastic, if we can do it by ourselves, self-service, and we can do it automatically, we can do something wonderful that we wasn't able to do before. And that is to scale the number of resources we ask depending on the demand we have. Most of our applications have peaks. We have more need for resources on the work hours, on the work days, and we have less demand of these resources on weekends and on the nights. But when we did this by hand, when we have these physical infrastructures, it would be crazy to say, okay, over the day when the demand grows, you very quickly go and configure the computers and turn them on and put them to work. And in the night when the demand lowers, you quickly stop the computers, turn them off, and then in the next morning you turn them on again. It would be ridiculous. But now that we do this by self-service and we can automate it, it's possible to do it. And it's the right way to do it, to be elastic, to match the number of resources we have to the demand we have. When we have more demand, we ask for more resources. When the demand lowers, we destroy those resources. And that becomes very important because we pay per use. We don't pay for everything we could need. We only pay for what we request in a given moment. The virtual computers, for example, we pay them by the second. Every second you have the computer turned on, you pay for it. But if you turn it off, you stop paying for it. So to be elastic becomes a cost issue. It's something that lets you save a lot of money. There are cases where you pay for the provisioning of your resources. So if you ask for a resource, even if you don't use it, you pay for it. So it's very important to only request the things we need. We return to the elastic part. We want to turn on and turn off resources depending on the needs. And be very mindful of turning off the stuff, because it's very common to forget to turn off something and keep paying for it, even if we don't use it. So we have a question. Would it be easy to write once and use everyone for multi-cloud using Terraform, Ansible, Chef, Puppet? Yes, but remember, not all the clouds are the same. Not all the clouds have the same services. Not all the clouds have the same capabilities. There are clouds that lets you do some stuff, and there are clouds that doesn't. So yes, ideally you could write something that lets you work the same in all the clouds. And that's the dream. If you are able to do it, go for it. But, and this is the multi-cloud myth. If you want something to work in a number of clouds, it's going to take you a lot of work. It's going to take you a lot of time, and you are going to need to do it for the lowest denominator. If one cloud has a better service, you cannot use that better service because the other clouds doesn't. So you are going to need to use the basic services, the lowest denominator. So in many cases, in most cases, in the common work case, it doesn't, it's not something valuable. It's going to take you more work than the work that you're going to save. And maybe the response to that, the solution to that is to use something like Kubernetes that lets you create an infrastructure and an automation that it's independent of the cloud you are using. But it changes the question. Now you need to do it on Kubernetes. That maybe is not the best choice for the work you are trying to do. But it's a very good question. It's something you have to have in mind. What is important, in my case, why do I use Boto3? Because I work with AWS. My client, the client I work for, the client that pays me to help him, they use AWS. They need help with AWS. And I want to give them the best service there is. And the way to do it, the cheapest, the fastest, the better, is with Boto3. I could do it for other clouds that he doesn't use. It wouldn't give value to him because he right now uses AWS. Okay. How do we use the cloud? At the start, when we start learning about the cloud, the normal gateway to the cloud is the console. The console, it's a web application that AWS developed. And in this web application, we are able to do whatever we want. In fact, the console lets you do everything. It's there are a little bit of stuff that you can do on the console, but almost everything, 99.99% of the stuff you can do on the cloud, you can do on the console. And there are things, not many, but there are things you can only do on the console. There is no other way of doing it. So we all learn with the console, and the console is very nice. The console works great. But if you start to do this professionally, if you start having tens of accounts, hundreds of accounts, if you start to have thousands of resources, if you are no longer working with 10 EC2 instances and with 3 buckets and with 5 kiwis, then the console becomes a problem. The console works fine if you have few resources, if you have few accounts, if you need to do some stuff, but not much stuff, just a little bit of action every day. What it doesn't do is to scale. Okay, it's easy to create an instance. But if you need to create 1,000 instances, it doesn't work so fast. Why? Because you do things by hand. This is the manual part of operating the cloud. So if I need to do the same thing 1,000 times, chances are that I'm going to mess up. One of those 1,000, I'm going to forget to turn something on. I'm going to choose the wrong option in one combo box. I'm going to do something different, and that is going to be a problem. If I control dozens of accounts, it will become hard to do it. I will mess up in which account I am, and I'm going to have problems. So the console works fine if you are doing something small, if you are learning, but it doesn't scale. If you need to do this for many accounts with a lot of users, with a lot of resources, it doesn't work anymore. You're going to have mistakes. You're going to take too much time in doing the stuff. It's no longer a good idea. Okay, What's the next option? We have a lot of options. The next option is the command line interface, the CLI. We install this on our computers. I put the link over here, how to install it. You install the CLI in your computer and you can give commands to the cloud in the operating system prompt. So you can say, okay, let me see which availability zones are and it's going to show it to you. So the CLI lets you do scripting. You can do programs where you send commands and these commands can perform activities in the cloud that lets you get information from the cloud, which resources you're working on. Okay, nice, it works. What's the problem with the CLI? And I would tell you CLI works fine. But the first issue we realize is it becomes complex very quickly. Right here, for example, I'm requesting the instances we have and the tags of each instance. And to get this information, I only need to do an AWS EC2 describe instances command very quickly, no problem. But to query the fields I want, not all the information there is, we need to do this query string. And we don't have an editor. We don't have syntax highlighting. We don't have clues of what we are doing. To create these commands, it's fun. It takes time. I wouldn't recommend you to do this every day. Yes, there are people that loves the CLI, that loves programming shell, Bash or PowerShell or command prompt in Windows. Yes, there are people that loves this and they can do wonders with this and they can do marvelous things, but it's hard. It becomes complex. There is not a lot of debugging tools. So yes, you can do it. I wouldn't recommend this for you for complex stuff. For very simple stuff, no problem. But for complex stuff, it's hard. Let's see, it's going to be a live demo. Yes, give me a second and we're going there. Do we have access to the Jupyter Notebook? Yes, it's the repository I mentioned at the beginning. The repository has this Jupyter Notebook and we're going there, don't worry. Okay, I wanted to show you this. This command I put over here is very important. Why is very important? Because it lets you change your volumes in AWS from GP2, that was the normal kind of volumes a year ago, to GP3. GP3 is not only a better disk. These GP2 disks are very good. These GP3 disks are better. Not only that, not only better and newer, they are faster, they have better availability, and they are cheaper, 20% cheaper. So if you still have GP2 volumes in your accounts, change them to GP3 volumes. And you say, okay, but I have thousands of volumes. How am I going to change them? I would need to go into the console and do one by one, select the volume and change it. No, we're going to see this command automatically changes all your disk without downtime. You don't need to turn off the computers. So this command is very important if you have not changed your volumes to GP3. And we're going to do it in a minute. Just let me advance a little. Okay, so the CLI is very good. Let me operate the cloud in an automated way. But it becomes hard if we're trying to do something complex. If we're trying to do flow logic, if we want to get the information and do a loop over that information, or choose some records and do something and choose others to do something different, it becomes very complex. It becomes very hard. So there is another way. The software development kits. What is a software development kit? An SDK. It's a way to operate the cloud, to control the cloud with a language, a programming language. So we could use all of these languages, a lot of languages. And I swear to you, every year they appear new languages over here. So you can program in JavaScript, in Python, in PHP, in Net, Ruby, Java, Go. You tell it. There are a lot of SDKs. So you are going to send commands to the cloud using the language you know, the language you need. And you can do mobile applications. You can use Android, iOS, React Native, Unity, Xamarin to do a mobile application that works in your phone that talks to the cloud, to use cloud resources or to operate the cloud. Or you can use these SDKs for IoT devices. There are very little SDKs, so they can run on an Arduino or in a Raspberry Pi, or even in small microcontrollers. And these microcontrollers can send information to the cloud, and they can retrieve information to the cloud from the cloud. Embedded C, JavaScript, Arduino, Java, Python, Circuit Python, Python for microcontrollers, or C. So as you can see, there are a lot of SDKs. You can use them in the language you are more comfortable with, or the language your application is done in, the language you are using currently, and talk to the cloud. Not only to operate, but to use, send information and retrieve information from the cloud, artificial intelligence, database access, use to computer resources, all of that. So if we want to automate the cloud, this is the way to go. Let me tell you something. There is another way of using the cloud, that is the APIs. All these three ways of talking to the cloud, the console, in fact, it's a web application done with an SDK. But Amazon has already done it, and it's maintaining it. But it's a web application. You could build a console if you have a lot of time and nothing else to do. Don't do it, but you could do this. The CLI and the SDKs, all of these uses the APIs of AWS. The APIs are the calls, the REST calls that you do with HTTP to talk to the cloud. And you can use the cloud using the API directly. You could build a software development kit for a program, for a language that doesn't exist. In fact, let me tell you something. Boto3 was the work of one person. There was a guy that loved Python, and he built this SDK to talk with AWS using Python. And AWS loved it so much that buy his work. And that is Boto3. Let me see, we have a question. When does it change to GP3 copies the content? Yes, you don't notice the change. The only thing you notice when you change from GP2 to GP3 is that you pay 20% less of the volumes, and that the majority of the disk becomes faster. So there is no downside to it. It's something we all should do because it saves you money and gives you better performance. And you don't notice it. You don't need to turn on the machines. You don't lose data. It's wonderful. Okay, I think we have another question. Do you need to supply credentials to Boto3? Does it support SSO? Great question. We're going there. Don't worry. We're going to do that. And yes, you cannot access the cloud without credentials. You should not access the cloud without credentials. If you are able to access the cloud without credentials, it's bad news. It means you have a security issue. There is one exception when you have a public application or a public data set. Okay, in that case, it's okay. But normally, to be able to use the cloud without credentials is a bad idea. Boto3 is the SDK for Python. As there is SDK for JavaScript, as SDK for Ruby, as SDK for Go, there is an SDK for Python. We're going to talk about Boto3 today, but let me tell you something, and the question we got was correct. There is an SDK for other clouds. Google Cloud, Azure, Netlify, Linode, big clouds, small clouds, all of them have SDKs. This is not something that only exists in AWS. And it doesn't matter what cloud you use, whatever cloud you use, you should automate. You should use the SDKs. You should use the CLI. Okay? We're talking today of AWS. We're talking today of Python. But it's not a requirement. You can do this in any cloud. You can do this with a lot of SDKs. You can do this with Java. You can do this with JavaScript. You can do this with C. You can do this with Go or Ruby, whatever you want. Okay? I was going to say Rust, but there are no SDK for Rust yet. But give it time. It's going to happen. So today we're talking about Python, we're talking about AWS, but this can be used in other clouds, should be used in other clouds, and should be used in other languages. If you are very good with JavaScript, you can do it with JavaScript. The commands change, of course, but they are very similar, in fact. So the Python SDK, it's called Boto3. This Python SDK in AWS is special. Why special? Because it has a name. It's not normal for an SDK to have the proper name, this Boto3. The JavaScript SDK, its name is JavaScript SDK. It doesn't have a name. And why is that? Why this have the Boto3 name? Because it was the project of one guy. There was one guy that decided to build this, and he called it Boto. That means dolphin. It's a kind of dolphin in the Amazon in Brazil. And AWS loved it so much that they took his work. He paid them a lot of money and took the Boto SDK. That's why it has a name. And probably is the most supported and complete of the AWS SDKs. When there is a new service, normally the new service doesn't have SDK support until a week, a month later. Except this one. The Python SDK, normally when a service goes out, there is CloudFormation support and there is Boto3 support that same day. It's the SDK that gets most support. But that means you need to update it all the time. This thing changes 3 or 4 times a week because there are new services. How do you install it? After you install Python in your computer, you only need to do pip install Boto3, and that's it. You have access to all the power of the cloud in your computer, in your local computer. I put the link of the quick start. This is the official documentation that takes you by the hand and lets you work with Boto. We're not going to do that here because I want to talk to you about other things. So let me hurry up because I'm taking a lot of time. How to authenticate? Really important stuff. And if you are going to take something from this, please take this with you. This is the most important thing in the talk. Never store credentials in your code. Don't do it. There are people that actually looking for these credentials, actively looking for them. They are browsing the Git repository, the code repositories, looking for credentials to use. And if you do it, they are going to find them and they are going to make something with them that you won't like. So don't do it. Never store credentials in your code. Okay, how do we connect? You can connect with a user. You can create a user and activate this part, programmatic access. This programmatic access is going to create an access key and a secret key. And you can configure that access key and secret key with your client, with the CLI. David, do we need the CLI to use the SDK? No, it's not needed. But when you are developing stuff, I would recommend you to have the CLI and the SDK, both of them, because this helps you configure your credentials. But it's not required. If you don't have the CLI installed, you can create these couple of files, the credential files and the config file, and put the information there. In fact, that's what the CLI does. It creates these files, and whatever you put here, it's going to write here. So you can do it by hand. Other way is to create environment variables. You can do AWS access key is this one, and secret key is this one. And the SDK is going to use that environment variables. In fact, when you write lambdas, for example, this is the correct way of doing it. So if I have the file and I have environment variables, what goes before? The order is one, whatever you put in your code, which I strike out because you should never do that. Should never put the variables in the code. Okay, remember what we said before? Never do it. Second, the environment variables. This is the most priority credentials you're going to use. 3, the SSO credentials. Yes, we can use SSO. In fact, we're going to do it in a minute. And 4, the configuration files. By the way, these configuration files are sensitive. If someone gets to this, you are in trouble. You should be very careful with this configuration file. Never share it, never give access to anyone, never copy it to anywhere. In fact, there are malware that looks for these configuration files. That is why single sign-on becomes very important. Let me see questions. Where do you recommend to store the credentials? SSO. That's new. That's something that a month ago I wouldn't mention SSO. Now I tell you it's the best way. Do you store the vault on premise or on the cloud? The vault, I'm not sure what vault. The credentials are stored in the cloud. The one that actually allows you to access the resources is the cloud. When you write these credentials in these files, you have them locally. That's a risk. It's something that you can do if you are careful. That's why we recommend single sign-on. Single sign-on, it's hard to set up. You need to set up organizations. You need to set up SSO. 2 steps you need to do. You need to set up your roles, the permissions the persons are going to have. So it's more complex than the other options. And the roles are very important. That's why I have my hard hat. This is my role, okay? What does that mean? What that means, it's me, David, it's going to have an authentication. I'm going to log in as a person. So let me show you how. This is my login screen. In my login screen, I put my username. And it asks me, I think it complained because I left this open a lot of time. I need my, let's do it from the beginning. I need my login page. There is a specific login page for me. In my login page, I need my username. It asks me for a password. If you don't do this, you should. This is a password manager. My password has 32 letters, numbers, and symbols. And there are a lot of letters, a lot of numbers, and a lot of symbols. That means if you want to guess this password, it's going to be hard, very hard. If you got me in the street and hit me for me to give you a password, I cannot give you the password because I don't know this. These 32 characters, I don't know them. The one that knows them, it's my password manager, this thing. It knows my passwords. I don't know my passwords. Okay, have an issue here. It's so true that I don't know my password that it doesn't let me connect. Let me see what. Okay, it's not working. I don't know why. After this, it's going to ask me for a two-token authentication, and we're going to do that in a minute. After I do all of that, after I connect, it's going to tell me which accounts at which roles do I have access. Because I have access to 1 or 20 or 100 accounts, but these are not different credentials, are the same ones. And we can enter these different accounts as David. This is very important. And in the CLI, we can do the same thing using the AWS configure SSO command. And this is going to tell me, okay, give access. It opens my browser and says, give access to this guy. And it will allow me to connect to the accounts. And that's great. After that, we can log in using this profile, or we can log out, which is very recommended. So let me see what the problem was. We have an intermission because the people at Whizlabs want to tell you something. Let me check the questions. You don't check the configurations file into Git? No, never. Forget about that. The credential file is in a different place, and it should never be shared with Git. It's the same thing as putting your credentials in code. David putting username wrong. Thank you. Let me check. Maybe that's the problem. Let me see. Well, okay. Let's do the intermission and then we come back here. I will check the username in a minute.
Okay, I request Mayank to take over now. He will walk us through a quick Whizlabs tour. Over to you, Mayank.
Yeah, thank you, Sneha. So, hello everyone. I hope you are enjoying David's webinar. His topics are very fine and good. And David's, there is some anonymous attendee. He is telling that you are putting username wrong. You can check that, okay? So, I am here to brief you about labs section from the Whizlabs website. So, many of the users are new one, fresh users, okay, customers. And in the webinar, many of are the old ones. So you might all be knowing that the Whizlabs provide webinars also, labs also, which you can use to do the practice and all. So let me go through it. So you all might have seen the new, wait, let me share my screen. I hope you all can see the screen now.
Yes,
right?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is our new UI, Whizlabs website. So let me go through the labs section. See, this is one of the course, a popular course from the Whizlabs, AWS Solutions Architect Associate. So we provide practice test, video course, and hands-on lab. Hands-on lab is basically to do the practice. Like many of the users are using AWS console to do the practice, and they are providing credit card details, doing billings and all, payments and all. So Whizlabs help you in those things. So let me take you. So these are the, wait, these are the list of labs which you can see under Solutions Architect course. Okay, this many are there. So we are having this many labs only for the Solution Architect exam. And you can see other courses and other labs also by going at play.whizlabs.com. Okay, so these are our labs. So let me show you one of the labs, this introduction to AWS Amazon Lambda. Okay, here it is. We have provided all the instructions. If someone is before the starting the lab also, these are the instructions. These are the diagrams, like what we have to do in these labs. Okay, so let me start the lab. I have clicked on the start lab. See, you don't have to do anything. I am user is available, password, access key, secret access key, everything is available. You only have to start the lab and follow the instructions. These are all the instructions. Launch every minute thing, all the minute thing are provided in this instruction. You have to go to the console, then start the bucket, create bucket and all things. So let me start. Open console. See, these are the things which you have to put at the starting. So I am user, you just have to copy it from here. See, this is the main AWS console. So you just have to follow the instruction. This is the first start lab and open console. I am username and password all are given. Next task is to create two S3 buckets. So you have to follow this. Services, go to services, create bucket like that. So services, we have to search, or you can type it here also, S3. Let me create one bucket for you. Bucket name, enter. I think this is provided. This, my S3 bucket which left 2021. Under that, we can create, or we can create outside also. Just follow the instruction, create bucket. Bucket name, bucket with the same name already exists. If we create, these are all the instructions, like successfully you have created the bucket. Okay. So this is one of the things that you have created, my source bucket XYZ. This is created. And then you can just follow it here. Once everything is given it here, bucket, and then the next task is given to create an IAM role. This is we are creating for the Amazon Lambda to demonstrate. So this is regarding the lab. And after creating everything as per the instructions, you can validate yourself also, like whether you have created all the things or not, correctly or not, like that. So we'll click it on validate. See, I have created, these are the things. I didn't create any of the things. Like one Whizlabs, that S3 bucket I created, but that was with different name. So it is showing status field. Nothing is created. See, Lambda functions. This one of the thing I have created. So it is showing that yes, one S3 bucket you have created. And then all the other things I didn't use in this based on the instructions. So it is showing failed. Okay, only this thing is success. So these are the things which Whizlabs provide. I hope many of you might like these things, and it is Whizlabs is providing the same thing for every courses, like whether it's of AWS or other certification, Azure also, and Google also, everything. So I think it's done for my part. David, you can take over it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that was a brilliant walkthrough. I hope it helped all our attendees. Okay, David, over to you.
Thank you to everyone that told me the issue was my username. Yes, that was my issue. So let's do this again, and now we do it right. It was on purpose for you to see that it's a live demo. My username, my password, as I told you, I don't know the password. I need to copy it from here. Now it lets me to the next part. Even if you somehow get my password, you still need, and I want you to see the screen, the camera, you still need this. You can see it to that because it's an authenticator. It gives me a 6-number code. I need this 6-number code to connect. So it's 930, and you say, hey, David, it's not the problem. Sorry, it's not that. It's 8300367. It's not a bad idea that we see this number. No, it's no problem because this number changes every 30 seconds. Even if you get this one, it is not going to be useful for you in 10 seconds. So I not only need to know something, I need to have my phone to be able to connect to the account. So it's very safe. And let me tell you something, this account, this Whizline account, I created this account yesterday, and I'm going to destroy it tomorrow. The important thing here is I can do it on a free account. You can do this with your test accounts, with your practice accounts, to activate organizations and SSO because it's free. And this is the next correct way of connecting to your resources. So in the Whizline account, I have this Power User Access role. What does that mean? Right now, I'm David Sol. I'm the person. When I open the console here, I put the Power User role. I get the permissions. And it's different to be David Sol than to be David Sol Power User in the Whizline account. That's what the role means. I get my hard hat. I get the permissions to do the work I need. And I can have different set of permissions for an account, for the same account. And I can have different set of permissions for different accounts. No problem. So I wanted to show you this. I have my access to this account. I have volumes. And in these volumes, I have a lot of volumes, and we have these GP2 volumes here, right? I need to change these GP2 volumes to GP3. Remember, we talked about it a minute ago. Well, I'm going to configure my SSO. How does it work in real life? Let me configure the SSO. I need my URL. That's something that they give me when they configure my account. Doing something wrong here. Copy, paste. I need my region, US West 2. I need, it's going to open my browser. Hey, you want to give access to this guy? Yes, give it access. Approved, ready. Sorry, it's here. So, okay, done. Where are you going to connect? US West 2. I need to connect via JSON. And the name for this is going to be Whizlabs. What does it mean? I can do a AWS STS get caller identity profile Whizlabs. I have access to my account, but without putting the credentials in a file in my computer. And that's very important because it means there is no file a hacker can steal and use my account. Right now, it's not like I can check in by mistake something in it. No, there are no credentials in my computer. I need to connect with AWS SSO login or logout because I can do this. AWS SSO logout. Now, I cannot use the cloud anymore because I'm out of permissions. If I try to do this, it's going to tell me you're not connected. You see? The token is expired or invalid. But I need to connect again to a login. This is the correct way of having developer access using SSO. When I try to log in, login profile Whizlabs, because we could have a lot of accounts, right? Which account do you want to log in? Whizlabs. And it's going to open my browser. And what does that mean? That if a malware enters, it's not able to do anything because it needs to give a click here. It would be very hard for a malware to do this. So I have given access again. And that means I'm able to call the cloud again. But okay, I wanted to show you about the disk because it's a way of saving a lot of money very easily. Let me copy this. What I'm doing here is to say, give me all the volumes. And give me only the volumes that are GP2 and give me only the volume ID. So let me show how this looks here. I made a mistake. Sorry, I wouldn't be able to show you this. This only works in Linux. And I'm in Windows. Okay, sorry. Do this if you are able in a personal account. This command works great, but in Linux, not in Windows. Okay, sorry, we're not going to see that. It was CLI, so don't care about it. We're going to go to Boto3. Let me show you something. This is Python. In Python, we have something called Jupyter Notebooks. What you are seeing right now, this IPNNB, is Interactive Python Notebook. It's a document. It's like a Word document, so to speak, but it has text inside it. This text is Markdown. I'm seeing here, this is a title, and this is the text that it should have in title. And I can give format to this text like we used to do in the last century. With this, I say, put it in italics, for example. You see, it's in italics now. You can read Markdown directly. This is readable, human readable, but it can be parsed. It can be reflected with format. The title becomes bigger and bolder. The italics becomes italic without the underscores. But you can also have a code, and this code can be run. This part, this cell in Jupyter Notebook is Python and can be executed. What I'm doing here, I'm importing the Boto3 library. I'm importing the prettyprint library to show objects very nicely. And I open a session using the profile name I already created, the Whizlabs one, and the region. I'm going to use the get color identity method. What's that? Is the same thing I did here in the CLI, get color identity. That command is the same command that this one, just using Boto3. And I say, Boto3, use this session, use this region, and get the color identity. Create an STS client and get it and print it out. So this is running code. It's creating a kernel, creating an running environment of Python, and executing the code over here. It tells me I'm working, and in a minute, it's going to say ready. And it will show me the result. It's going to be printed here. When I finish the demo, I'm going to upload this to the Git repository with the results. So it says it's running, taking a lot of time. And this is the information I got. Almost all the Boto3 calls are going to give you this response metadata information. It's an object with the information about the request. The important thing here is this one. HTTP status code 200. That means, yes, the information was available, and yes, I give the information to you. If I don't have correct credentials, if this profile name is not valid, it's going to send an HTTP status code 400 and something, 403, unauthorized. If the request is invalid, it's going to send a 500 status code, like a web request, because this is an API. It tells me the account, it tells me which account I'm using and what user ID do I have. Remember my error that solved a bit? This is soladmin. What does it mean? This request, this response that it's an object, I can use it in my Python code. For example, I'm going to print a string saying we're using the account response object account field, only this part, with the user response object user ID, split it on the column. So it's going to give me a list with two values, this value and this value, and give me the value 1, because value 0, value 1. So the result of this is we are using the account, this number of account with the user, so that means we can use the information we got from the cloud. So summary, how do we connect to the cloud with Boto3? If you are a human operator or a human developer, if you are a person and you're going to have your cell phone, you should use SSO and you should use named for files. If you don't have SSO because your company doesn't have it or in your personal account you doesn't have it, you create a user and use the access keys using the files, the credential and config file. But first choice is SSO, even if it's your personal account, it's free. Second option, EIM access keys. For instances, if you are going to run in an instance, use instance profiles. That way, there is no credentials fixed in the computer. For Lambdas, because you can put this code, this Python Boto3 code in a Lambda, use Lambda specific roles, put them their handlet. In these both cases, least privileges applies. And you never put your credentials in the code. Okay, hurry up. AWS is asynchronous. What does that mean? I have one instance here, and I want to show you this. This instance is stopped right now. See, this one. I'm going to ask Boto3 to create a client for EC2. This is the instance we're using. I'm going to start that instance. But it's going to respond immediately. Yes, I started it. And it's not true. The instance is starting. What it's telling me is, yes, I begin the process. I press the power on button, but it's not ready yet. So we're going to call this waiter function. We're going to tell them is wait until the instance is okay, until the status of the instance says, yes, I'm ready to work. And in that moment, you tell me, okay, it's ready. So check this out. I run it. And in 2 seconds, it tells me, yes, I started the instance, but it's not ready. It's here. It's waiting for the instance to be ready. If I go here and I refresh, you can see the instance is running, but it's still initializing. What is this important? Because this happens a lot in AWS. You send a command, and it doesn't mean, you send the command and it responds immediately. It doesn't mean it has finished. That only means it has started. It's asynchronous code. We are not waiting for the instance to be ready, unless we explicitly wait for it. Right here, we are waiting for the instance to be ready. You see, we're 1 minute on, and the instance is still not ready. So the use of waiters is very important, and this is the example on how to use a waiter. Let's see questions while the instance is ready. Do you have this recommendation explaining the course? I don't know what course. There are courses that has it, courses that doesn't. The cloud moves very fast. SSO is not that old, but there is documentation about this in the CLI and in SSO. So you can get it from there. What else? I understand never check the credential to Git. How do you keep track of configuration changes in configuration files? The personal configuration files, you don't need to keep track of the changes. You only have the actual configurations. And in the future, you shouldn't use them. You use SSO, right? But you don't check in these files. These are personal. These are confidential. They are never shared or stored anywhere. It's like your password. Where do you keep track of your passwords? To tell you the truth, in my password manager, but not in the code, never in the code. Not sure you answered the question about the Vault available on-prem or on the cloud. Okay, the Vault, so to speak, the credentials are stored in the cloud, in AWS. Who knows the users and the passwords? AWS in the cloud. It's not on my computer. especially if you use SSO. Where we have to write this code. This code, you write it in a Python script, my program.py, or in a Jupyter notebook, right? Like we are doing right now. So you can do a program in Python and this code is in your Python program, or you can use a Jupyter notebook like I'm doing right now. And after this ends, you can download the repository, check it finished, and that is it. Can we have the Boto3 installation steps to automate the tasks? The Boto3 installation steps is pip install Boto3, and that's it. That's how you install it. You can do a shell script that do that. Yes, no problem. Okay, it says the instance is ready. You notice it took 3 minutes to do it. If I go now to here, now it says 2 of 2 checks passed. It's okay status. That's the use of a waiter. And it's very important to remind this. The commands response immediately. What do I like of Python? Python lets me work interactively. I'm going to ask, give me the instances I have. And it tells me, okay, you got 2 responses. You have reservations and response metadata. Response metadata, if you remember, is where it says 200 okay. It's where it tells me, okay, everything is good. What is this reservations? There is only one value in reservation. Okay, what does reservation has? That we had groups, instances, owner, and reservation. Okay, instances sounds interesting. How many instances are there? 5. Ah, nice. Are these 5 instances? Show me the first instance, but only the first values, only the first level of the object. Here is the information of the instance. Everything you want to know about the instance is here. The ID, the image ID, the instance type, when it was launched, the IP address, the root device, everything. Okay, let me see the tags of this instance. 2 tags. Okay, print the tags. It says, okay, it has 2 tags, color and animal. Nice. We can use Python for this. I can say, okay, for each tag of these 2 tags, if it's the animal tag and the value is dog, print a dog. If it's a cat, print a cat. Nice, isn't it? I can do code with this information. I can work with the cloud and do code, do the stuff, anything you want. We can do anything with these languages. We can do it here. Okay, David, that's great, but you only did it for the first instance. Okay, I can do it for all the instances, for all the reservations, for all the instances, and that means if we have 2,000 instances, this is going to work for 2,000 instances as easy as it is with 1 instance. Print the instance ID and the tags. If it's an animal, print the kind of animal, and if not, print the value of the tag. And after each instance, print 32 equal signs. So I run this, pop, 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 and I have my 5 instances with its tags. The color of the instance and the animal of the instance. And there is an instance that doesn't have tags, doesn't show anything, no problem. So this way I can get information from the cloud. What does it mean? These tags values that we have here in the cloud. I select an instance and I see the tags, here they are. Sometimes we don't use them. We say, okay, yes, you can put tags, it doesn't matter. What good it is for us to be writing tags. You can store information in those tags. For the users, for example, you can put the real name of the user, the department, supervisor, the email, their telephone, the expiration date of this account. Notes, this guy is very nice, please send him something in its birthday. Or for an instance, I can say which application the instance is in. Which email should I send an alert when something goes wrong? What role does it has in the application? It's a front-end server, it's a back-end server, it's a middleware, it's a security related. What happens with this instance? Or is it using Windows licenses, or is or not, or does it use a license of a particular software? I can store all this information in the tags. And that means when my boss calls me and tells me, tell me how many instances uses a Office license, I can get the information automatically from a Boto3 program. I don't need to go check one by one all the instances. I can do a program that generates this report with all this information. And I can do it automatically. I can create a Lambda that runs every day at 6 a.m. that gets this information, creates a report, and sends the report by email. Automatically, we don't need to operate the cloud manually anymore. That's the important thing. And the tags help us a lot for that. Okay, David, but we need to process all the instances? No, we can say, give me the information for just one instance, for example. You see, one instance only the instance with this ID. Or I can say, only give me the information of the T4G micro instances. 3 instances. Or no, I want the 3 T4G small instances. 2 instances. And I can check security group. I can do AMI. I can check operating systems. I can check the status. Give me the stopped instances. Anything you want. You can filter here which instance you want. For example, I can say, give me only the instances that have a red color. 2. Okay, but what happens if we have thousands of instances? If I ask for all that information to come in a one big hit, it's going to take too much time. It's better if we do several calls. So I'm going to say, give me all the instances. Sorry, give me all the instance types. T2 nano, T2 micro, T2 small, right? But only give me 10 results. This is the response I get, and these are the 10 results I asked for. It only give me 10 types. Okay, what happens if I want the next 10 types? I have this next token. This next token is what it's allow me to paginate. I will run the same command again, but telling them the next token, it's this next token, which I save here. So what it's going to do is give me the next 10 results. If you check, these ones are not these ones. This is the next 10. And I saved the next marker here. So I can run this again, and it's going to tell me the next 10. And I can run this again, and it's going to give me the next 10. This is the way of processing a lot of data without doing huge requests. I'm going to request a group of values, process them, and then the next group, and then the next group. Okay, David, but this seems somewhat complex to be saving the next marker and then using the next marker. But in the first call, you don't use the next marker. And then there is a moment where there is not going to be a next token when we finish. How do we know we finished? Because it's not going to be a next token. We need that. If next token, continue. If not, stop. Okay, you can automate all of that with paginators. The paginator is like a waiter. It's a way of doing this the easy way. I'm going to say I need a paginator for describe instance types. I want only 30. I don't want all of them, but I want you to bring me 10 by 10. Ask for 10, process them, ask for other 10, process them, and then ask for other 10. So I'm going to say print all of them. So it's doing this, the loop of get the information, process it, get the information, process it, and stop automatically with a paginator. There are paginators for a lot of requests. So as you can see, it brings me 30 types without me having to do anything. I can only ask for it. So it's very important to use paginators. Okay, and we get to the nice part of the talk. If you say, this is all very nice, but it's somewhat dry. Okay, this is the good part. I can get an instance, this one, for example. I can say monitoring. We're doing this live. I promise this is the last one, and I saved the best for the last. I have the CPU utilization that it should show that it was stopped and then it started to work. You see, it was stopped and then it started working. I say I want to see it in CloudWatch. I want to see the graph of this. Let's see questions. Can MFA used in Boto3? Yes. In fact, I did it. When you log in to SSO, it asks you to go to the browser and log in the browser. Okay? If your program is going to run inside a Lambda, you don't use MFA because it's no, this only works with humans. So what we are going to do is to have an SSO login and then use our program, right? So you can use MFA with Boto3 using SSO. That's the great thing about SSO. It will be hard to schedule running Boto3 script automatically if one has to click. What happens is you have your Boto3 script and you put it in a Lambda function. And the Lambda function, it's going to have the role. So the Lambda function doesn't have credentials. It has a role, right? So you don't need to set up the credentials. And the Lambda, it's going to run your script. And it's not going to be MFA and nothing, but there are no credentials to steal. That's the wonder of the Lambdas. That's why Lambdas are great, because your code is going to run in a Lambda with the Lambda role that you cannot steal as a hacker. And we can talk about Lambdas in other webinar if Whizlabs invite me, because it's very interesting. Okay, let me do this graph quickly. We have this. I want to set up a vertical annotation at 1335. Start instance. Start. Okay. The hour is 13:35 hours. And we want to fill it after, and we want to fill it with green. Okay, and I want this to be 30 minutes only. What do you say? Does it look good? Good, right? Okay. Did you notice this source tab here? If you have used CloudWatch, it gives me an object and it has this image API. You see, this is a JSON object in text. What do I do with this text object? I copy it. I put it here in a string. This is a string, right? Even if it means, if it represents an object, this is simply a string. This has letters. I'm going to create a CloudWatch agent, a CloudWatch client, and I'm going to paste that string that I created over here. And I run it. Perfect. Get the widget image for this cadena, for this string. I left the Spanish here. Give me the response. What did you get? Because it executed. This B means binary data. We got a lot of numbers. Number, and some letters. These are letters. PNG, does it sounds like anything to you? PNG, there are image files that are PNG. Okay, let me do something. Let me how do I clean this up? It's not letting me. Right, there it is. What happens if I say import image support for Python and use the image, use this binary data as an image? Nice, isn't it? I am getting the information in graphical form in my notebook, in my Python script. I can get these images and do something with them. And this happened to me. My clients say, I want these graphs, these CloudWatch graphs for all the instances every day. One way is to go here and do copy paste, right? Do a screenshot and copy the images. Or we can do a program in Python and get the images automatically. Because this is a strings, it's a string, it's text. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to look for all the instances, and for each instance, I'm going to get the network information for the last 5 hours. And I'm going to set up a warning level. But as you can see, I'm changing the instance ID in the string. So this is going to generate an image for each instance. It's running. 3 seconds, 4 seconds. Hey, where are the images? I didn't see the images. Because I'm creating a file with the instance name and writing the image to that file. So if I go here, I now have 5 new files. And these files are the information for each instance. Hey, David, it doesn't show anything. No, because my warning level is too high. I need to lower that warning level. It's very slow. Okay, how do I do that? I go here and I change the image. My warning level is going to be 100. And I run again. It's a text string. I can change it to whatever I want. Done. If I check the images now, the warning level is 100 and it goes to 20. Okay, it doesn't work as I want it. Let me check what I miss. Maybe yes, this is the problem. The y-axis is too high. Let me change that. Run it again. And as you can see, to generate these graphs, it's a matter of seconds. And if there were 2,000 instances, I could generate these graphs with the same ease. Now it looks better, right? Now the limit is 200, the warning level is 100, and we have the information of each instance. This one has a lot of traffic and it went up, but as you can see, we have the information we want of each of these instances. Nice, isn't it? We can automate the operation of the cloud. We talk a lot about infrastructure as code, how to create infrastructure, but we can automate the operation of the cloud, and that is very important. So references, we are done, but stay because Whizlabs have a surprise for you. The Boto3 documentation is here. I invite you to the AWS Community Builders group. It's a very nice group. There are going to be inscriptions for this in a couple of months, well, in 6 months. You can find me in Twitter. The repository is this one. Let me get the repository for you. You can get all this code. I'm going to upload the notebook with all the work we did in a minute here. Let me put it in the chat. Everyone, that's the repository with this code. And don't forget to connect to Whizlabs, follow them on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and all the courses and practice tests you have there. Thank you very much. Don't go. We have questions for you. And prizes.
Thank you so much, David. I think it was a brilliant presentation, and I think the attendees enjoyed it a lot. Okay, now it's time for the quiz. I hope you all paid attention to what David taught you all today. I would request Mayank to share his screen for the quiz. Okay, so we will have 5 multiple choice questions, and we will then announce 5 winners who will get access to free courses and practice tests from Whizlabs. And Mayank, can you go to the next slide, please? Yes, we are also announcing some special coupon codes for you all. So if you want to purchase any courses or practice tests from Whizlabs, you can get a flat 60% off by using this code, which is there on your screens. Okay, yeah. And if you are also interested in buying the premium subscription, okay, so if you get the premium subscription from Whizlabs, you are able to access everything on the Whizlabs platform along with the hands-on labs platform. So if you are interested in that, please make sure you get these codes with you. Okay, moving ahead with the quiz. So answering these questions should be in the Q&A section, not in the chat box. Okay, please use Q&A section and follow a particular format. So if you, for example, if you are answering question 1, then write it as 1A. If the answer to question 1 is A, then write it as 1A, 2B, 3C, like that, so that we know which question you are answering for, and we can reward you accordingly. Okay, so I hope you all are ready. David, please go ahead with the quiz. You are on mute, David.
I'm on mute. Okay, but it's not a characteristic of cloud computing. Cloud computing has important stuff. Which one of those 4 is not a characteristic of cloud computing, something that cloud computing has to have? How do they answer this?
Yes, they are answering in the Q&A section.
Ah, perfect.
Yes.
So between you answer, I have already uploaded the code. So it should show here any minute now.
Okay, we will have 30 to 40 seconds for each question.
Okay. Okay, it's not letting me upload it. I will upload it in a minute. Okay, next question. The console works great, it's very good. We do things in the console, but what's the problem with it? When it becomes an issue and we should not use it anymore. Doesn't scale. It's hard to learn. A lot of tiles and buttons. It's insecure because we access it over the internet, or there are services that are not yet in the console because they are very new.
Okay, I think everyone has answered. Third question is there on your screens.
I was uploading the code. Give me a second. Okay, third question. We can use the CLI. We can install the CLI and from the operating systems do commands. What's the problem with it? What issue does it has? It's only for automation. We cannot use it as humans. It's insecure because it keeps using the internet. It gets complex to use when we are trying to do complex stuff, or there are services that are very new that they are not available in the CLI. What do you think? Okay, ready. The code is already in the repository. If you download the repository before, you need to download it again. Or pull it again to get the notebook with all the changes we did on the webinar. Next question. How many software development kits are? There is the Python SDK and that's it. There are no others. There is the Python and the JavaScript SDKs because the console used the JavaScript one, or is the console done in the Python one? Or there are for Python, JavaScript, Java, Go, mobile and IoT, or there are a lot of SDKs. We don't know the number because there are tons of them. And last question. If one thing you should remember from this talk, how should never you connect to the cloud? What is the thing you should never do? Configure the access keys in the CLI, store your credentials in code, use the environment variables of the operating system to store your credentials, or use SSO credentials in the CLI. What's the thing you should never do? And to remind me what they are going to win? A travel to where?
Okay. Yes. I think almost everyone participated in all the questions. And we will announce the winners of this quiz on our social media by tomorrow. as per the Indian time zone. And so please make sure you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever platform suits you. And you will be able to see the winners list, and we will reach out to you separately as well with asking what is your choice of reward for this. So whoever has answered all the 5 questions correctly and at the earliest will be eligible for the rewards. And if you are somehow not able to win this, don't worry. We also have a giveaway going on currently on our social media. So if you are looking for purchasing a course, then maybe you do check out that giveaway, and you can comment with your answers. Today we are celebrating Teachers Day in India, so it is a post about tagging your mentors, your guides who have mentored you in your AWS or in your cloud certification journey. You have to simply tag them, and we will choose 10 winners from that giveaway post to be eligible for a free test or free practice test or an online course. So yes, we are looking forward to it. And thank you so much, David. It was a wonderful webinar today. And those who want to stay for a quick picture with David and everyone, so please raise your hand. You can use the raise hand feature, and we will add you as panelists, so you are able to switch on your camera, and we will have a nice picture with all of you. And I would request maximum participation in this, please, because we would really love to see all our attendees today. Okay.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I hope you invite me later. And if you have any questions, you can find me at Twitter. You can find me in the AWS forums in Slack. I participate in some of them. And I hope you got something interesting from this talk. Don't worry, it's a lot. I know we see it very fast. You need to learn Python to use it correctly, but this is the way. You need to automate not only the creation of the components, but the operation of the cloud. That is the future. Thank you very much for being here. Have a great night. It's starting the day over here in Mexico, but
yes, don't leave just now. You can switch on your cameras. Those who have been already added as panelists, you can.
I see a community builder over there. Hi, Albert.
Hi.
I'm not the only community builder, as I see.
Yeah.
Okay, Stefan, Nikhil, Hector, Vedant, please switch on your cameras. We will have a quick shot with all of you. Is there anyone else who wants to be added? Have we missed out on anyone? Okay. All right. Are we all ready with our poses? This picture will be live on our social media, so you can make sure it's a good one. Okay. Are we ready? Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. See you in the next week, as we are hosting one free webinar every week. So do make sure you attend that one as well. And thank you so much, David, once again. It was wonderful to have you. Bye-bye. Have a good day.